Welcome back to the 10 steps to building AI skills in genealogy. I'm Coach Carol, and I'm thrilled to help you discover how artificial intelligence can help you transform your ancestral storytelling. This is step 5 of our AI skills journey, and today we're diving into another of the most exciting applications of AI in genealogy, and that is storytelling. Do you want to turn your genealogical discoveries into compelling stories? Do you want to engage your future generations? Today, you'll learn how to use AI to transform facts and dates into rich narratives while maintaining historical accuracy and some ethical storytelling standards. I'm suggesting that you follow the building blocks approach when wanting to transform your facts into narratives. It really sets you up for success. The transformation of facts into narrative is something that the AI tools do very well. First, gather all the core facts that you plan to include in the narrative, and you might have that in a Google Doc or a Word doc, and this will contain your research details for that ancestor or family group. Next, plan to use Perplexity to gather historical data, local events, social conditions, economic factors, and cultural practices, and add the results into your Google Doc. This will give you the flavor and the setting for your narrative. Then finally, use an AI tool such as Claude to build the story piece by piece. You may create a timeline from the facts, or you could then choose a specific fact as the focus for a scene. Then request a story outline in narrative format and in a style of your choice to engage with your audience. Let's start with a typical genealogical fact and transform it into an engaging narrative. In this set of slides, I'm focused on a particular family group in my ancestry called the Fear family. First of all, I have a list of facts for one of the Fear family ancestors that I have downloaded from my research in Ancestry.com. And you'll see that in the first image on the slide. And then I craft a prompt, a very simple one, where I ask it to create a biographical narrative for the Fear family based on these facts. So I need to upload the fact file, and it could be in Word format or it could be a JPEG image. Either will be readable by Claude. And then in the second part of the slide, you'll see the results of that request. Claude is always polite and tells you at the beginning, thank you for sharing the family register. I'll help create a biographical narrative for the Fear family based on the historical document. And then it goes into a rather dot point type of biographical narrative. And it's still rather informational rather than a story. So it's looked at the data and then transformed the text into more readable paragraphs with dot points. So let's go to the next step. Now we can start adding any personal elements. For this, you might want to use Perplexity which will enable you to plan and add historical context for the story of your family group. In the first part of this slide, I have asked Perplexity to show me how to set up a Perplexity space for the Fear family, and it's given me clear instructions on how to do that. Spaces in Perplexity is a way of categorizing and storing your prompts and responses so that you can find them easily later. It begins with the steps that I needed to take to create this space. Then, for my historical research, I've asked for historical events that were pertinent to the Fear family in the 18th century, and the answer shows on the right-hand side of the slide there. And Perplexity has come back with quite a long list of these historical events under the headings of agricultural changes and industrial developments, as well as social changes. Further planning to add even more personal details about the life of my ancestor. In my research, I had found out that William Fear was a maltster, someone who deals with the grains to make malt. Here in this slide, I'm showing you the results of the prompts in Perplexity to dig a little deeper into the life of a maltster in Sawbridge, Worth, where he lived in 1825. So my prompt was, help me create narrative elements that would be historically accurate for William Fear's life, such as his likely daily schedule as a maltster, the sounds and smells he might have experienced, and the challenges he may have faced. And I was fortunate in this case that Perplexity found an image that was exactly pertinent to the story of this ancestor. It's a maltster's van from Sawbridge, Worth. This is not an AI generated image. It was one that it found for me in Flickr. So the next step, I now want to switch focus to the daughter of William Fear. He had 5, I believe, and in particular Louisa, who was my direct ancestor. And I've asked for an ancestral profile for her, and I attached the life story, which was the précis from Ancestry.com. So I've just asked for it to create that ancestral profile from the life story précis uploaded. Now, working through the completed example on the screen for you, it shows the results under the headings of vital statistics. It drew out the birth, baptism, death, and burial dates for Louisa. Then the parentage gave me the vital details for her father William and her mother Sarah. And then marriage, looked at the details for her marriage to William Langdon, when, where, and what age she was. She was quite young at the age of 19. Then next, the list of children from those facts. And Louisa had 5 children, 4 daughters and a son. And then a list of the residences that were gained from census details. Then at the end of this response is a list of significant life events based on the facts file that I uploaded. The death of her mother, Sarah Hunston, at the age of 85, and the death of her sister, Sarah, 2 years later. And then another 2 years later, a tragic death of her daughter Emma, who was aged just 9 years of age. And then, tragically, just another 3 years later, her own death at the age of 41. Now, all of these facts could be seen, but by asking Claude to put them into this ancestral profile, it made it clearer to me as to what the story was, or could be, about Louisa. Then at the very end, it gave some research notes, looking at the name variations, the 3-year gap between marriage and the first child's birth. This is unusual in that era. And in a suggested investigation into the cause of death, specifically because she died young, and a large age gap between second and third children also warrants further research. So this gave me ideas for how to draw that into a story. Creating a story arc for an ancestor requires some structure from the facts you've saved from previous responses. And what I gained from the response from Claude was that poignant fact that Louisa was born to her parents in their later life. And it has referred to that as a late life blessing. The context being that she was born to older parents, mother 51, father 56. So in this prompt, where I've asked it to create a story arc for Louisa, I've also asked it to suggest what else could be researched to provide an interesting tale. And by doing that, you're asking Claude to come up with a plausible outline and suggest section titles and add observations and facts to make an interesting tale. And that's what it has done. Number 1 is a late life blessing. Number 2 is growing up in Sawbridge Worth. Number 3 is early motherhood. And let's continue. Number 4 is their move to Birchanga, noting what the distance may have been, what forms of transportation they used, what housing did they have, or housing conditions. Then family growth, the gap between the children. 6, the final years, the short lifespan, cause of death, and the fate of the surviving children. And number 7, additional research, social context, economic context, local history, and so on. So we've got quite a number of things that we can add to the story. And you'll see how we're doing this in the building blocks approach. And now for the story itself, we're asking Claude to create an opening segment based on one of the observations, a late life blessing. Now, I might not have even registered that fact in looking at the birth details, but having it pointed out here made me think that this was an interesting way to begin the story of this great-great-great-grandmother. Once again, picking up on the context of being born to older parents and looking at the impact on family and the impact on Louisa and the family dynamics with much older siblings. And in the second part of this slide, you'll see the beginnings of that story, or at least the opening segment of it. So it makes for a more intriguing hook to get your readers to read the story. So the AI tools have helped me enormously with this project. Why not have a go yourself? Let's put some of these techniques into practice. Use the building blocks approach and create a biographical sketch. Choose one of your ancestors. Gather your documented facts. Put those into a Google Doc or Word doc. Use Perplexity to develop historical context around their era. Then with Claude, create a biographical sketch for the ancestor and write an opening scene for the story. I hope you have fun with that as I did with mine. The key takeaways for this lesson, step 5, storytelling. I've listed these as the lessons that I've covered for you today, where you learned how to transform facts into engaging narratives, use AI to develop historical context, create believable ancestor profiles, build vivid scenes, and structure your ancestral story with the building blocks approach. Finally, our next steps. Have a go at creating your biographical sketch. Optional, create a story arc for a family group. Create your prompt library. Do store the prompts that you used along the way. Optional, share your results in our Facebook group. And once more, prepare for tomorrow's lesson, this time on image generation.